people, and welcome back to part 56 of Ilos, our modded Cities Skylines build. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Thank you so much for all support. I guess a couple of weeks now, wasn't it, since we did the last live stream where there was no episode last week, but we did have a wonderful time on stream putting together Geriatric Park, and a big shout out to ASUS as well for making all these little assets for us. He really is making Ilos funnier than it actually is. So thank you so much, mate. Really appreciate all the work. But either way, everyone, welcome back to the desert. It's been a long time, hasn't it? Well, it feels like it anyway. And in today's episode, you would have seen the thumbnail. We're going to be working on quite a fun little project, something that's quite sort of quintessential, I guess, in the southwest of America. And this is going to be the border crossing. So of course we are working with real life inspiration today, so let's hop over to Google Earth and see exactly what's happening on the US-Mexican border. So welcome to the US-Mexican border, everyone. So there is a ton of border crossings right across this border and across many different towns, and they're all different shapes and sizes, but there's one that I'm keen to take inspiration from here, because it's quite a cool little industrial facility, I guess, over here, right? So we can use this to satisfy some industrial demand, also some warehouses through here as well. We can see that indeed the trucks have a separate border crossing, and they seem to come through here perhaps where they're scanned and searched and whatnot before they're allowed back into the US to of course go down here. There's also a veterinary service nearby as well, of course you would imagine, for any animals that are crossing the border. And a whole bunch of little industrial detailing bits. There's like a little scrapyard over here as well, plenty of industrial prop detailing, and some pretty unique road configurations. And I think we're going to use the vanilla toll booths for this, but we can just get an impression of the general sort of scale of things here. So lots of toll booths here where we have all our cars, right, and then the trucks are processed in a separate area. So that's definitely something that we can bring into Ilos's border crossing, of course. And in Ilos we have this little stretch of highway here, and this part of the map pretty much has nothing in it. So this feels like a good point to build our border crossing. Let's get started, shall we? Okay, so we're going to need to leave the game on pause for pretty much all of today's episode, as we're going to kill a crucial highway connection into the city for a good chunk of today. But again, just starting to sort of take inspiration from our sort of point in Google Earth, we can see that, you know, we're having that sort of truck processing area. Now, this only seems to be present for trucks that are crossing into the US. There doesn't seem to be any sort of truck checks for those going back into Mexico, so that's definitely something we can bring in. And I think actually one of the vanilla policies actually might come in quite handy here. So what I'm thinking we will do is separate the trucks out onto this road here. Okay, so again, today's build's going to look a bit janky before it starts to look good. So just bear with it, right? We will get there eventually. Cool, so let's come into our border crossing units, or actually toll booths is what I mean to say. Because I like to use the one-way large toll booth if at all possible. So let's go ahead and stick this on here. Now of course this is going to need to be bobbed because it is plastered in crap vanilla trees, so let's get rid of those. Cool, so this now gives us our truck processing area for when we come in. So I'll bring that industrial road out and then we can start to develop the kind of truck processing area over here in a second. Well, that's not going to be too bad, alright? So what I am thinking now to do is for trucks coming in to Ilos via this way, or cars rather, and we will of course create the car border crossing in a second. But what I would like to happen here is to actually apply the policy on city planning for heavy traffic ban. What I'm hoping will happen here, again this is all sort of testing so we'll wait and see, is that trucks will no longer use this road, and instead the game will force them to come through the truck processing area and then back onto the highway once we develop it. Okay, so we'll see how that general idea pans out. It might be an absolute disaster, yeah, but we will of course wait and see. So of course these toll booth plazas are like a real key aesthetic of our border crossing, right? So we definitely want to get a few more of these in. So let's start snapping little bits of our highway off. And then we're going to grab this, and then we're going to see if we can actually let's place them in ourselves, not with move it, because then we're going to get the snap function, which will help. Okay, so can we go there? That's not too bad. And then I definitely want to start peeling these highways apart now, because I want that aesthetic of kind of the toll booths right next to each other here, which move it will help us do. And of course we can use move it to configure our highways back together. Cool, so I think those vanilla toll booths are going to do a pretty sensible job for us, aren't they? Okay, I think I'm on board with them. We definitely don't use this asset enough. It's a really cool one, very cool for industrial areas as well, not just a border crossing build. Alright, But we get the impression, of course, okay, once we start surrounding that with larger infrastructure, things are going to start developing some spices, which is what we're all here for, isn't it? Cool, so now I reckon just a little freeform tool here. Back into the highway should do. And then let's also push this back a little bit as well. I think we could even go for 4 lanes here, couldn't we? I think maybe 4 lanes might also be the better choice since we're handling sort of large volumes of traffic. Cool, and then I think, of course, a little bit of Old Faithful Surface Painter will always go well between these areas once we come to our detailing time maps today. Should be quite fun, right? Lots of industrial prop detailing to be had here, trucks being searched and whatnot. And if you can, don't forget to hang out for the live stream as well following this episode, because we will be doing the border crossing coven, which will be one of the last ones in the storyline. Cool. So, I'm happy with this, right? It would kind of looks like a border crossing, kind of approach it from the highway here. So now we've got our sort of toll plazas in, let's start having a look at how we can start to piece together our sort of truck processing area, if we like, okay? So, of course, we want plenty of room here. And I think what I'd actually like to happen here is to have kind of the highway almost passing through the border crossing facility itself. And I think we can start sort of boxing that in by placing in some warehouses. Now, there's a couple of options available to us. We could go for a large, which is kind of perfect for what I want, really. It also gives us these truck bays at the front, which is basically what's happening in Arizona. I don't think I can refuse that. That's pretty much what I need. That's absolutely perfect. So I think we go for that. Okay, I think I'm pretty happy with that, but I'd like, again, to do something a bit more interesting with the road network if we can. Let's start trimming back this industrial road here, and then we'll grab its little one-way counterpart. Bring this one up, and then we'll throw this one out by 8 units, and then we'll bring it back up there as well. And then, of course, there's lots of little node control nuances we can do here now during our detailing time lapse. We can square everyone off and stretch everyone out. I'll also do these here as well to stretch it all out. Make it look a little bit more organic, and then we can round out this facility here by turning off node controller. There we go. Let's go for 3 units. We'll hook that in, and then of course just configure our flow system so it all makes sense. And then again, it actually looks as though we can possibly bring in a further curve here using our industrial road. Let's go for something like that. Of course, we might change these exact road configurations once we come to the detailing time lapse. If another road looks more appropriate here, then we can do that. And then again, it looks like we have another toll plaza, which I think we can definitely do. Perhaps by using a different one this time. Let's come down to the small one-way toll booth. And I can see where I want this to go in, so let's just go for about there, I think. Again, we're going to need to bob this because it's covered in crap. And then we'll grab one of our highway roads again, probably 3-lane this time, because we got 3 lanes here, haven't we? Yes, we do. And then we'll merge back into our highway, just past that heavy traffic ban, hopefully. And then everyone should be happy, and we can just pop back in here. Cool, and then we can configure our IMTs and network markings over there in a second, but that does start to give us this little facility over here now, doesn't it? Cool. So again, it's important, we always keep checking from different orientations and angles and see what's happening with the build as it progresses. But I think now, we do have the ability just to see exactly how that heavy traffic ban comes into effect. I'm hoping it will force them down this way. I guess we're just going to have to wait and see, aren't we? Realise this doesn't need to be 2-way either, does it? We can actually keep this going as 1-way. I wonder if that Vanilla Plus road's actually going to be a decent shout for that. Maybe the American one's probably better. Definitely needs a road here, doesn't it? Maybe we can go for this 4-lane US one with no parking might be a better shout, maybe. I guess we'll see. Okay, so now we just need to wait for fresh AI to spawn in, and then see if indeed they do actually obey our heavy traffic ban. And success. So the traffic ban policy didn't work. It just sat for like 10 minutes, nothing happened. So what we have ended up doing is actually using a vehicle restriction using Traffic Manager. So it just banned trucks from this segment of the highway. And now it would appear that all trucks are now having to siphon off through the truck processing area, which is going to give us a very cool aesthetic come the end, right? A little bit of Traffic Manager is going to make an enormous difference to the aesthetics of the finished product here, which I'm really happy with, and that's going to be pretty cool. Now we've got our truck processing area. Of course, this wants to be detailed and whatnot during our time lapse, which of course will, and probably include some kind of further, I guess, industrial looking road assets around here. Definitely things like road maintenance buildings will go a long way to sort of bring in the vibe together here. Probably use quite a few of these today. Although if we are going to place road maintenance depots here, they are going to need a way to loop back around, so maybe some sort of bridge over the toll plazas here might be required once we come to work on this section, which we'll do now anyway. Cool. So let's come into our highway roads again, and we'll grab another little slip lane here. Let's grab 2 lanes this time, and then we'll see if we can match it up to here. That's going to help our trim wheel design. Again, I think in our effort to keep framing the highways here as it flows down, I would like to start matching up a freeform tool with some road guidelines. That's going to give us some classic road against road action. There's also some nice fence detailing opportunities against here as well. Let's have a look at what possible fences we have. Of course, the famous fence against the US border is enormous, but we do have this one here, which I realise is a prison fence, but it's perfect for what I need here, isn't it? So if we were to have this here, let's start mapping out. I guess actually, is this... It does count as a network, doesn't it? I bet we can do this with IMT then in that case. Let's have a little test of that. Let's go ahead and grab intersection marking tool. Okay, and then we'll change the style to a decorative network. And then hopefully we can get that prison fence if it does indeed appear here. No, it won't appear in IMT. I'm guessing that's just not something we can fix then. Okay, well it doesn't matter then. It's not like we're going to hit the node count at this point in Ilos anyway, I don't think. So we'll just have this manually drawn in and get an impression for how this sits against. Okay, and we can have this here. And what do we think? Been lots of overgrowth against that fence as well. It's really going to help with the vibe, isn't it? It's already really coming together. I love that there's traffic backing up here as well. You know, I want it to be busy. Like, you know, there's a lot of traffic going back into whatever country borders Ilos on the southern border. But, yeah, I do like it. That fence has made an enormous difference, hasn't it? Just see, everyone, fencing is the best. It helps with every build, no matter what you're doing. Add some fence into it and it automatically becomes better. Tremendous, wonderful. So I'm happy with that. Let's go ahead now and grab that little highway road again. And we're going to start bringing this now. It's going to that freeform tool again. So also hit a couple of road guidelines. And we'll go for here. Cool. So we'll use this as a slip exit for the highway here. Now at some point we are going to have to factor in a loop back over to feed this area. Okay, so we'll use this feeder road to start holding the next sort of processing area of the border crossing, if we like. So let's start bringing out some general holding frames here, okay, and we can start piecing some fun things together here. I also imagine the wonderful world of sub-buildings from Find It is going to come pretty useful for doing something like this. So let's have a little look at that while we're talking about it. Let's add in our filters. We will go for sub-buildings, and industry is really what we want. Yeah, see, so we can grab like parts of the large warehouse here, although it does have kind of a hollow edge to it. We can still, you know, things like the back end of the natural disaster response unit are going to work tremendously well for a theme like this. So we'll also throw down some more warehouses here, because these are going to be just a great aesthetic, but again, I want that orientation to be how I need to use it. So let's bring in a little road here, and then we can flip our warehouse around. It's really about kind of exposing those sort of truck bays to the road here, because that's going to be a real key point of our detailing for the border crossing here. Again, I think we can even maybe move that one further back, and then create a little concrete yard out here where our trucks can pull in and be examined and whatnot. So we'll do that. Let's piece that all together. Cool. Happy with that. Of course, we do have a bunch of garbage processing from Avania that we used many moons ago when we built our sort of mass garbage processing center. And I think, again, just the theme of them is going to lend itself... Oh, let's not do another warehouse there. It's going to lend itself really well to Ilos. And because we have like these metal processing units, and I can imagine that perhaps, you know, there's sort of policies at the border crossing, you know, if something isn't allowed over the border, then it's immediately destroyed on site at the border crossing. And we can create that effect by positioning these garbage processing assets up against our fencing, which, if you ignore the flickering lighting due to the aliens, we imagine, I think you can get the effect, can't you? And of course, we can detail our own scrapyards as well with our props from the detailing time lapse, but definitely having some functioning props like this in the build is going to really help. Cool. So again, we can keep just essentially piecing together these modular blocks now using Google Earth as inspiration for them and filling them in with detail and props and whatnot, but I do want to add in the loop back over to the other side just for the functionality of what's happening over here. So let's come ahead and grab that. We'll get our highway roads, and I think probably just a one lane, actually, to be fair, is going to be okay here. Something like this. And then, again, probably network multi-tool is going to be the best option for this, but we'll do it ourselves initially. So if I can come up to 6 meters, I think I'm happy with that. It should give us enough clearance. Well, maybe we want to try 8 there. Of course, we can network multi-slope and then bank this out as we need it. But as long as I can get across without it looking too ridiculous, ignore the modern art, we'll of course configure it. But yeah, I don't think I hate that, you know, just a little loop, sort of switchback bridge that loops back to the other side of the crossing. Maybe for those that are perhaps turned around to say, no, you can't cross, you need to go back over and go back into Ilos, then they can do that. Okay, and again, I think maybe now seeing it sort of there for the first time, we want to maybe embank this as opposed to elevate it all the way. I think that embanked layer will do a better job for us. And then we probably just want to drag that node back there so we're not getting the clipping. Fantastic, but I can definitely get on board with that, alright? And then let's grab this road now and put it on there. So we're going to bob off the street lights here. So then we won't get the clipping in them. And I actually think there's a kind of more appropriate light for a border crossing here. But again, we'll search for light and find it. Yeah, this one right here. So I'm thinking we can probably get this one in and around the border crossing because it's kind of illuminates it a lot more, doesn't it? Okay, we can probably have a few of these as well, maybe to actually highlight or sort of light up the border fence that we will eventually draw in over here. Okay, kind of a lot more official, a lot more sort of secure lighting, isn't it? I guess is the phrase we're trying to go for here. Yeah, I can definitely get on board with that. Much prefer those big floodlights, I think. God, I wish that lighting glitch would just stop. It's so annoying. Just go away. Ilos is slowly dying, everyone. But we're getting there, right? New city will be here soon. New map, fresh frame rate. Yes, please. I can't wait. Cannot wait. Cool. So let's now just bring this on its freeform curve, and then we'll come back down to Earth, and then bank it down. Let's bring this one down to Earth again. And then this can switch around, hook into that one, and then they can complete the loop here to get access back onto this road maintenance depot here. And it also allows everyone to just have a nice time, hopefully, and just keep moving around. I guess we'll see how it goes. Okay, in terms of what we're going to store at these warehouses, I'm not entirely sure yet. I guess this close to the map edge, commercial goods is going to be the best thing for it, I think. I don't see why not. We'll set it up anyway. But otherwise, we're already starting to see this facility develop, aren't we? Right? Such a cool way to add much more personality into your highway. Well, just general highways. Because highways can be often so boring. Look at all the planes over there, man. That's so stupid. I wish they'd fix this. Like, have you got enough planes? Look at those as well. Just stop. The Sky Harbour is way too big. It's just so busy. Massively ruins the immersion. Discounting the aliens, of course, right? Yes, the aliens are not immersion ruining. Not at all. Cool. So I really want to see this fence in action again now. Let's start really fencing off all of this sort of main central highway corridor. We'll bring it up to this one over here as well. Got some nice sweeping freeform curves on the go. Keep that going up to there. I wonder if we actually also want to use this fence as well to kind of mark out the border. It would be a fair few chungus nodes, but we could use network multi-tool to remove them. But I think that's definitely a vibe, isn't it, right? It's definitely what we see when we look at Google Earth. So I think I'm happy with that for the most part. It is slowly piecing together, I think. So just as we continue to look around Google Earth at this particular border crossing, there's actually some substantial older buildings here. I thought this would kind of be more of a modern security facility, but it definitely isn't just that. So let's have a look at some of our policing assets. So we've got a couple of choices here. We could go for police headquarters, or our, well, police headquarters again, they're both police headquarters, or indeed the intelligence agency. Now, I'm not entirely sure. I think this one's a little bit more suburban. Don't really want this one here. But this one is definitely a vibe that I can get on board with. And again, just in the continued fashion of sort of piecing this area together, I definitely want the orientation to be appropriate here. So I think a little bit of industrial framing against the back here, so we can spin our police headquarters around, and of course we can service paint this up and get some of our police car props in to, you know, simulate police cars, of course. Let's go ahead and service paint all this while we're here now. But what I really am looking for is that positioning of sort of the police insignia against the highway to just symbolise that there is some sort of police presence here, right? Again, I think that really adds to the vibe, doesn't it? Especially with that fence in the foreground. That fencing just made the whole build come together, hasn't it? Yes, please, everyone. Really enjoying that. I definitely don't think we'd be averse to a police helicopter depot set out here either. So we'll certainly grab one of those. Let's go for this one here, and maybe we want this to sit over here. How's that going to look if we have that there? Again, yeah, it's more of an industrial looking asset, that one, isn't it? So I'm happy to have that sort of sat over there. I don't think it's too bad. Again, keep checking for more angles, make sure everyone's happy. Yeah, I actually love that embanked road there, how it's giving us that little elevation in the desert. That's really nice. I'm a huge fan of that one. We'll hopefully see someone use it eventually, anyway, once someone comes down here. But there is one thing I would like to do. We do have this asset that we've used before, which is the security checkpoint, which we can have. Again, I think I just want it to continually add to the vibe. So I'm not really expecting this road to get that much use. So with that in mind, we're going to connect back into the slip road here, and then we'll get a little freeform curve. And again, I just want to keep positioning assets all around this main sort of centered highway frame. And then with our security checkpoint there, which does function as a police station for the game. Again, it's just going to add to that sort of border crossing vibe, isn't it? Especially as you're sort of driving through here. I definitely see the Ilos flag, which we will certainly put into the border crossing. Again, we can't not have this, right? As you come into Ilos, you have to have the flag here. At least in a couple of places. We have one there. Is that about right? Yeah, I mean, it would definitely be on the Ilos side of the border at least, wouldn't it? So we'll have a couple of these around here. Right. No, that's too bad. That's pretty cute. I absolutely love that flag. It's so good. Literally the best community. You guys just make me assets for the series. Just thank you so much for all of that engagement. It's just amazing. And then I think off the back of this road here, I now just want this little two-way country road to essentially just go through the desert. Now I know we don't, well, I'm not really expecting anyone to use this road because it's enormous out of the way to go, but just so we get like a nice long country desert road here. Okay, you know, we've worked with this vibe before in Ilos, and we're going to have to possibly remove the perimeter fencing from Area 51 here a little bit, because I would like to have some country road access down here. Let's bring it through this way, all the way through, and then into here. Okay, we can node control that one out as well with maybe a touch of intersection marking tool if we're feeling dangerous come the end. And perhaps a little slip road back onto the highway that runs parallel with the Sky Harbour. I'm over here as well at some point. That might be quite welcome. Fantastic. Well, here we go. Okay, of course it wants to be forest brushed. Would have helped if I had turned off tree anarchy. That would have saved me a little bit of time, but of course we live and learn. So we'll just paint that away. So yeah, I'm not expecting anyone to use this. I just think the AI will prefer to stay on the actual highway and use the interchange out this way, but we'll just wait and see. We'll see what happens with it. But it's going to be another connection into the border crossing, and it also allows me to use my security checkpoint asset here as part of the build, which I'm tremendously happy about. Fantastic. Cool, so let's speak about some more appropriate assets. Definitely think post sorting would be a vibe over here, wouldn't it? With, you know, post arriving over the border, it has to be x-rayed to make sure it doesn't contain any suspicious narcotics, etc., right? Cool, so let's have that over there. And I'm almost thinking now, I kind of want this to be angled. How far until you lose your connection? I mean, we can always draw in another road so you don't. Yeah, just so you're more parallel with that highway there. Yeah, and then what we can do then is use Surface Painter to paint out our concrete edging. And then we can create that truck yard here as well. I'm just going to go ahead now and throw together a little mini time lapse. Because I really want to see what all these truck trailers look like here. I think it should give us quite a cool sort of aesthetic. So we'll be right back. so there we go. We kind of get the general impression of how things are going to work here, right? I think this is pretty cool. Some little overgrown fencing vibes with some scuffed up concrete and the big sort of truck processing center here. I also upgraded the road here into our little, where is it? It's a little one unit one, isn't it? Yeah, this little two-way plain street, which is basically just surface painted road, which works so well for creating like a cohesive yard like this. Massive, super helpful asset. But we get the impression, right? Just opening up the front of these warehouse assets to have all these trucks, and like there's one sort of coming out here after being checked to head back out through the loop and then head through there, which I'm really happy with, and hopefully as we get more, you know, trucks coming down this way, it's going to be, well, actually, interesting, where are you going? I was hoping that you might use that road, but no dice, that's okay. Wait for some more to come through, hopefully. But I'm really liking how this side of the border crossing's coming together now, right? Lots of processing here. I think there's further vibes that we can implement into this sort of theme as well. If we were to grab another one of these plain streets, let's also throw it on the angle. And then if we get the post sorting facility, like we mentioned earlier, I think this would be a fantastic place for this to sit. Are you not connected, Mr. Metal? No, you're not. There we go. Now you are. Oh, I deleted that road, didn't I? That's why. Okay. Yeah, so same process again here. I want to move this one back a little bit more. And then let's delete that one there. And then let's go for... Alright, so we'll bring this up to about there. So, you know, imagine the post that is coming across has to be scanned, etc. And then I'm pretty sure, again, we can get our... No, I am mistaken. It's only the post container we can get, can't we? We can't get the post truck as a prop. That's fine though, we can definitely do lots of container detailing out here with our post containers. And again, we can just use these roads as a border for where we want that to happen. And then let's bring this around. And of course that fencing will come in clutch again as well, just to help round out the facility as we surface paint everything together. Cool. It is slowly coming together now though, isn't it? I'm starting to enjoy it. We're getting our post people coming through the crossing now as well and into there. Wonderful. There we go. And wonderful. Here comes one of our road maintenance trucks. He's going to use the loop for the first time, so at least they are actually recognising that as a sort of loop back over there. He's going to drive across there, the road there now too, which is great. Very cool. And then yes, he's going to go through the one-way loop. He should then loop back through the yard. Let's make sure he doesn't clip with that truck. He shouldn't do. Ooh, it's a close one, but he's alright. And then he's back in and he's completed his shift. That is a monstrous commute, isn't it? He's got to go all the way down the highway into the city and all the way back down again. Cool. And as I suspected, still no one using this road yet, but we'll decorate this up and make it sort of cute and functional, at least a little bit too. So before we move into a detailed time-lapse, there's kind of one service thing that we haven't addressed yet, which we are going to now before we head into it. So let's go into our fire stuff. So we could have a fire station here. Of course, it wouldn't be totally out of the question. I think I'm pretty on board with it actually to have a fire station, or whether or not it's going to be that one. I think maybe we might shift it over the other side of the complex. Maybe something like here might be a little bit more acceptable perhaps. Again, it's not too bad, but there is an asset from the fire stuff I want to use. And this is going to be the fire watch tower, because I think this would make an excellent sort of guard outpost, right? It's obviously going to satisfy some of our fire demand. Not that Ilos ever burns anyway. But I think if we just have a few of these dotted along the fence line as we come to complete it, maybe not that frequent, that's maybe a little bit overkill. But we can hopefully create the effect of a guard tower as it sits against the border crossing, while also helping to satisfy some fire demand. Which again, I think is a sensible repurposing of one of the assets, isn't it? I think I'm on board with that. It's cool. It definitely looks like a border crossing, doesn't it? Those towers and the fencing really help with that aesthetic. And then you can see the Ilos skyline like way off in the distance behind there. Or the oil refinery over there too. Airport hotel. Very nice. I love it. Very cool to see Ilos from this distance, right? And get very excited as you start arriving over the border, right? Like, oh yes, we're nearly there. Very cool. Very cool. Fantastic. All the buses coming through here now as well. All these confused intercity buses anyway, because they don't actually carry people anymore. But otherwise, guys, I think that feels like a good place for a detailed time-lapse. What remains now, really, is a ton of surface painter and prop work. Again, taking inspiration from Google Earth to replicate little sort of truck inspection areas like this, other little sort of police checkpoints, and lots more fence details to be brought in to really help bring our border crossing facility together. It's a pretty cute, minute build, but should end up pretty highly detailed and hopefully a bit more interesting than the Various one, which of course was limited by the vanilla mechanics. So we'll see what this one turns out like. Again, I did really enjoy the Various border crossing though. That was a really fun one. Yeah, and then also probably bring this fence as well, flush with the fencing over at Area 51 over here. You do have that bit of airport fence. And then this actually would continue as Ilos' border all the way down. And again, it's probably a bit overkill, but I'll probably do the same thing out here as well. Then tie it all together, lots of trees detailing, and of course don't forget to hang out for the live stream in the weekend after this, because we'll be doing the final, well, one of the final covens anyway, the border crossing escape coven, which should be quite fun, I think, to say the least. Alright, otherwise, let's detail it up, and then we'll be right back. Okay guys, let's have a detailing review, shall we? So this has turned into a really cute little border complex, much different to what we did in Bavaria. And let's take a look around it, shall we? So of course it's surface painted, dropped in decals and bushes around our toll booth entrances, which really helps highlight them. And then also got our floodlights in here as well. And we can see now the effect that this kind of triple layer of fencing around a road network has, right? Leads to a real secure sort of border vibe, and I love this little elevated road as well that comes across. That just adds such a nice little layer into the build that I didn't really know that it needed. As we head into the truck side of the complex, we have developed a little police car yard here, of course, where police cars are held when they're not being used or being out on patrol. And of course, we're respecting the orientation of the insignia against kind of the general complex, which of course always helps detail the build. And some shipping containers, general props, also dropped in a couple of police here as well next to the shed and the gate. And then some boxes and a little bit of office and some parking decals outside just to help fill some of that awkward concrete space that we're introduced to here. Also dropped in some sound barriers against some desert overgrowth here as this and then as we loop back into the truck processing area, we are greeted with a little bit of office zoning, some more sound barrier gardens here. Again, just glancing back to Phoenix, not everything in the yard is concrete. There is actually some overgrown desert there, so wanted to try and respect that vibe a little bit. And then we've also got some office zoning here where I have dropped in a little police sign on top of it that we had in our prop list, which is quite cute. And then our post sorting depot spills out around here with some forklift trucks and plenty of stored containers. Of course, our access for processing and examination, etc. before people are allowed to spill back into the Ilos highway network by following this road, which takes them back to the toll booth, of course, that then spills them back into the highway. Also dropped in a elevated walking pathway as well. And I love the way this sits on top of the prison fence. I think that's really cool. So we've got like a little walkway back and two now. For people wanting to get back and two, of course, because they can't walk on this road because it's technically highway. So that's nice. I'm really happy with the way that that's turned out. Then of course we got all our trucks leaving. That's so cool that that one comes out like that. It's just yeah, really cool. Great use of that large warehouse asset to replicate something that we saw in Phoenix. There we go. So you see them leaving their bays and then they come out. It's fantastic. And then also because this warehouse is starting to fill up now, we can see all the items stored in it, but because of the theme of the build, it looks like, you know, this is all stuff that hasn't been allowed to cross the border and is perhaps being stored here before ready's been moved across to the other side where it'll be destroyed. So I really love that. Very like thematic and on point for the build, I think. And then as we do cross over, we'll get a glance back down this middle highway section now where we've got in these decals and little bushes and overgrowth and whatnot all around this sector. Before it does move back into the concrete area. And then we've also dropped in a emergency shelter from natural disasters, a little bit of office zoning, a classic Ilos scrapyard, of course. We see these all over Arizona, especially Phoenix when we're working with the Mar grid. But there is sort of scrapyard vibes knocking around near the border crossing, so I wanted to bring those in as well. Then got all our trucks laid up out here now, decals, etc. around the edge of the warehouses again. These warehouses starting to fill up, so it looks like things are being withheld at the border, not allowed to go over. More truck props, etc., more decals. A nice big open concrete yards, there's a ton of them around the border crossing. Obviously, imagine for the volume of trucks that they need to, you know, turn around and process, there has to be this vast open concrete space. Then we arrive at some generic industry which has been placed in with a yard behind with container props, bushes and fencing. Again, there's just a lot of dusty container yards knocking around these places, so we'll try and respect that where we can. And then Lavagna's recycling assets have fitted in really well here. I absolutely love that you can just see that sort of scrap vibe from the opposite side over there. That's really cool. I think that's, yeah, just nice orientation, nice placements. I love all the overgrowth and the sort of tree linings against the fence here as you're sort of driving in and out of Ilos. It's really sort of picked up that border crossing vibe, and just an enormous lover of this view especially. As we look at the fused toll booths where the trucks are separated out for separate processing, and you can just see the skyline in the background there. It's a really cute build, and it's turned into a pretty sort of organic little facility that just molds around the highway now to add a bit of personality into it. So I'm tremendously happy with it. It's really fun. Otherwise, guys, that is going to do it for today. I'd like to thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, likes, comments, and shares below really do help me out. Equally as much if you haven't enjoyed it, then please feel free to leave me a dislike as well. Really happy with this and my second attempt at a border crossing and the first using mods, and they're really fun. If you haven't tried to put one together, you can repurpose so many of the vanilla assets into sort of a more secure vibe, and you can add them anywhere you want on your highways as well, you know. I really love these sort of highway personality builds, things like border crossings and highway rest stops, industrial service batteries, things like that. I really love building around a highway. You get to create some really cool vibes. Please do enjoy your cinematics, but I will shut up and leave it there. I'd like to thank you all so much for watching, and as always, enjoy the rest of your day.